Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our first episode of Pesa Talks, broadcasting live from Nairobi, Kenya, where we will be unpacking the Budget and Finance Bill 2025. We get to see what it entails, what it omits, and what's at stake. I am your host, Malina Kinyi, and with me are two powerhouse vocals, Professor Fred Ogola, a governance and strategist expert, and John Nyangi, a health economist and a vocal health financing in Kenya. Welcome, gentlemen, into our show, and I would like us to briefly dive into the Finance Bill 2025. Professor, I will start with you. You've often been vocal about fiscal responsibility and strategy investment. From your reading of the Finance Bill 2025, do you see a clear economy strategy, or we see something of the same as previous years?
You see, there is nothing really new, and the government hasn't learned a lot from the experience they've had. First, the fact that the finance bill they did increased taxes and they didn't collect money. And they suffered from what you had being discussed before, the Laffer curve, that you can have everyone paying taxes if the taxes is zero, of course, isn't it? But you can have no one paying taxes if the tax is 100%. So then they are raising the taxes, even the income tax and the rest, but not knowing the implication. Like, for example, they haven't told us how by taxing more, they are going to raise more revenue, which will create a deficit, because we have always seen that the finance bill is a strategy to collect taxes, but it doesn't deliver the outcome that is expected, and that's why they continue gazing. I'm sure you've seen almost 4 supplementary budgets. How can someone do 4 supplementary budgets in one financial year? It means they're doing guesswork. Yet most companies, the biggest of them like KCB, Equity Bank, budget is done once. Even Coca-Cola, a global bank, a global company, a organization like Coca-Cola, they do budget once. There's no supplementary budget in between. And there's zero variance to budget. But here we are seeing whereby it's guesswork. And as just we are discussing with John, there are some things in that budget that don't make sense, the finance bill. They say, we delete this one, replace with this phrase. Then they say, we remove this completely. But people don't know, you are deleting from which document? Now, a normal mwananchi, the so-called the Mama Mboga government, those Mama Mbogas and Boda Bodas, they don't understand what those things mean. And I think the finance bill should have been more clever. When we went to court, we told them, can you explain, if you say you delete this, what's the implication on people's living standards? For example, how much will bread go up if you increase fuel by this amount? If you increase these taxes on diapers, how will raising a child be difficult? How does it affect children going to school? How does it affect attendance of girls to school when, for example, you're able to tax, for example, sanitary pads? How does it make girl child education more impactful? They just make decisions based on some policy, which is not based on what I call an economic foundation. And I'm sorry to say that there are no hard-nosed economists in that treasury who are capable of delivering. I used to think that they are doing it just by mistake, or maybe they are forced to. Because when I talk to them, because some of them are friends, I'm an economist, he's an economist, some of them we meet in a bar. Sometimes we share a flight to Mombasa, and we are sitting, for example, to make the CS treasury. Then you ask him questions, then you wonder whether he knows what he's doing. The truth be said, the level of incompetence can be seen in this finance bill. And that's why you usually see in the beginning they came with 4.3. Then now it's 4.2. Can you imagine a variance of 100 billion? What can 100 billion mean? And then the last part I'm trying to say is that there is a connection between this thing, like we said before, between the finance bill and the budget, but they have not been able to explain to Kenyans exactly what is a finance bill and how the finance bill relates with the budget, so that Kenyans can understand how it will be helpful to them. And the last thing I want to say about this is that already I am hearing that we are going to have a party. The party will be on 25th of June, isn't it? It will be around the time they are going to pass this bill. What if we extend the party to reject the finance bill? And there are so many reasons to say you want to reject it. Because the cost of living is not being reduced by this proposed finance bill. And this proposed finance bill doesn't tell us how we are going to improve the education. The money they collected the previous finance bill telling us they want to give us good education. Education has gone poorly. Healthcare is still doing badly. Standards of living is terrible. Infrastructure is depreciating and there's no investment to improve it. And therefore we believe that the finance bill is only good for those in power, but not good for Kenyans. So they have not been able to talk about what's called value for money. So the finance bill has not explained the value for money. And when you don't explain the value for money, you see Kenyans resenting.
So are there indications that the government is investing in productivity and innovation, or the bill is more consumption heavy?
To tell you the truth, if what you are saying, if this question can actually be reflected by those in power, Kenya will go very far. We are not producing. When the president went to China, he came with money to express the so-called the SGR, isn't it? Yeah. SGR, do you know, it's not development. Any construction doesn't mean development. Do you know that building a house is not development? Because what is development? Development must be able to, you must put something that generates something. Yeah. You know, if you are borrowing money and you're putting money in something which cannot generate, that's when debt continue piling. Mm-hmm. Do you know why there's a rule in economics that you must only borrow for development? Mm-hmm. Because for development means that you will be able to generate revenue from that thing to repay back. Mm-hmm. Tell me any single thing these people put money on that can pay back the debt. SGR, we took a debt, isn't it? Yeah. How is SGR paying back? You go to expressway, we go to the highways, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Those are infrastructure that will enhance something else. Mm-hmm. So if there's no maize being produced, if there's no ngwashe being produced, if there's no coffee being produced, what needs to produce something they are leasing and selling, like the sugar factories, isn't it? Yes. What can generate money like coffee and tea is abandoned. So how much of that budget or finance bill is going to finance the growth of coffee, tea, pyrethrum, textile, you understand? Growing of maize, growing of beans, so that Kenya can be food secure. What can bring less pressure on the shilling by us having to buy too many dollars, by having to reduce exports? So long as that is not happening, it is more consumption economy, and consumption is not bad. But we cannot be able to have more consumption, a budget that produces more consumption, less production, because that deficit is what creates, one, exchange rate going up, two, interest rate going up, and three, inflation. Ask yourself, do you know the inflation rate for China is 0.2%? Isn't it? Our inflation is 5.1%. Can you imagine? And the only way to reduce inflation is by producing. And I hear them talking about we are reducing inflation. You cannot reduce inflation by playing with figures in a balance sheet or Excel sheet in treasury. You just need to produce, so that the more you have to sell against your cash, then the more you lower your inflation. China is the workshop of the world. Everything you have around, maybe, I don't know whether I'm sitting on a chair produced from China, but China is everywhere. That's why Chinese have been able to manage, and that's what they need to move to. But this finance bill doesn't indicate where the money is coming from. They even say they are not obliged to explain to you where the money is coming from. KRA has always said, our work is to collect money, don't tell us whether the money is being used well or not. So that's what the problem is.
Okay. John, the health sector in Kenya has long suffered in terms of inefficiencies and underfunding. What stands out for you in this year's budget in terms of healthcare allocation?
Thanks, Marlene. Before I pick it on specifically on healthcare financing, let me weigh a little bit on Sogola's submission, and I agree with him that when we are discussing, like at the moment, we are discussing about the finance bill, and the agenda in every TV station, on every headline, every street talk, on every bar where people, 2-3 people are seated, they're discussing about the finance bill. And this is also very relevant because we know what happened to the previous finance bill.
True.
That it was rejected, and the first one ever to be rejected. And there's also a probability that this one might also suffer the same fate as the one of 2024. So we are in a stage of the budgeting process where a country prioritizes that these are the problems in this country that we're going to solve. In the health sector, this is the priority. In education, in infrastructure, in security, in the welfare, they prioritize them. And then now say, how are we going to solve this? Then we go into the budgeting process. And the budget now deciding what do we want to do and how we want to do it and where we're getting the money to do it. So we begin by the budget is putting in the context for our viewers and our listeners that the budget is put into 4 stages. And the first stage is where we formulate the budget. And it takes a very long time. It takes about 10 months. Like the budget for 25-26, the formulation began last year in July and it ended in April, this last month. So 10 months preparing the budget, doing the planning, deciding the priorities, checking our past revenue, whether we have enough revenue to finance this, getting the views and feedback from various stakeholders. We put all that together. So the first stage of preparation, and then now we go to approval. So now the Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury and Economic Planning is the one mandated by law and PFM Act to manage the budgeting process, has finished his part in preparing the budget and submitted the documents, including the budget highlights, the finance bill, and other documents that are required by law, that he submits them into the National Assembly, because that is the representative of the people. So now the National Assembly committee can look at what the CS from National Treasury has proposed. And now we are here, and the National Treasury submitting those documents into the Assembly. It takes the National Assembly 2 months, that is this month of May and June. By end of June, by that date of June, the law requires that they must approve the documents, including the finance bill, the budget estimates, with or without amendments. So now we are discussing about the budget estimates and the finance bill, which helps to indicate where are they going to get the money, how are they going to raise the money. And the finance bill is not just only about raising the money, it's also about managing the economy. Because you can impose a tax on an activity to discourage it. For example, if it is smoking, and that is a government policy that we want to reduce smoking, then you can impose a tax on cigarettes to make cigarettes expensive, so that when they are expensive, you can hope that the consumption will go down. If you want to encourage consumption of a particular commodity, then you lower the tax to make it affordable, that the masses can access it. So the finance bill, like Prof was saying, has to explain that what is the impact you making this proposal. So what? And that is what the finance bill at the moment does not tell us. So you're saying delete paragraph A, B, and C, so that what comes would we hope to achieve. So when looking at specifically this budget, and you asking me a question around what do we see in this budget for health, given that health care financing in Kenya has struggled, underfunding, inadequate funding, inefficiencies, health workers strikes, and all that. So when we look at this, do we see this addressing these particular problems? Kenya, even pronouncements from the previous government of Uhuru Kenyatta to the current government of William Ruto, all of them have highlighted the goal of universal health coverage, that they're trying to achieve universal health coverage. So that is the pronouncement. So as analysts, we go deeper now, look at the walk and the talk. This is the policy pronouncements. Then when we go to the budget, are those pronouncements funded in this particular budget? I can tell you, Marlon, if you go into the budget and see whether UHC as the goal is being funded, I can tell you it's not funded. A very easy one. We have workers called UHC workers that were recruited during COVID-19. They put their lives on the front line to protect the nation and offer them support. They are now being tossed. The national government is saying, we don't want you. The county is saying, we don't want you. So where are they? If you say in a word that my goal number one in healthcare is UHC, then you have here staff, 8,500 of them, called UHC staff, and then you cannot absorb them. And how much is required? It's about 10 billion to absorb them in permanent and pensionable terms completely. And then you see who is benefiting. The healthcare is not benefiting, actually has no increment. When you look at the budget at national level is 136 billion. In the supplementary budget 2 for financial year 2024-2025 is the same 136 billion in the current year. So do you see whether there's any increment? It's not there. So how are we going to fund these priorities? So that is one indication that if you cannot deal, if you cannot even appreciate the workers, it doesn't care how much system you're bringing in. They have procured a system of 104 billion to run UHC, and you don't have 10 billion to employ workers. So who is going to run this system? So where are the priorities? Where, in policy we say the priority is what is funded. So what is funded? UHC is not funded. Then how is it a priority?
It's not.
They're talking about that, this government, they said the reason why Uhuru Kenyatta's government got it wrong, because they piloted UHC, then when they was about to the rollout, it never took off. They said it's because they went curative. We want to go preventive. So we want to go to primary health care. And when we go into primary health care, we want to have to reform and change from NHIF to SHIF and have the social health insurance now, force everybody to contribute, and then that's how we are going to deliver UHC. Go to the upcountry, go to level 2, level 3, dispensary healthcare, and see whether there is service delivery there. I was talking to one of the in charge in a dispensary, and I was asking him how they are delivering service. And then what did he told me? He told me, we don't have patients. They stopped coming when SHA was implemented. I asked her why. They went to private. Why are not coming to the public health facilities? They said because we don't have commodities. They come here, then we have the services that they need. They can't access those services in public health facilities. So they can't waste time to come here. They go to private health service. And when they go to private health service, SHA does not fund outpatient. What happens there? The private health facilities, they go and admit these people because it is lucrative in SHA charging inpatient. Outpatient, they have allocated 75 shillings per person in outpatient. So what the private facilities are doing, they go admit them, and then you go home, but you are admitted. Then you told after 3 days we will discharge you. We will send you an OTP in your phone. Send us the number. Then we discharge you. You are admitted in the system, but
you're admitted at home.
You are at home. So what will happen? The SHA will not even be able to reimburse all those claims because they're making the inefficient part of the system. They're making the cost very high. What would have been treated as an outpatient case is being treated as an inpatient case. Very expensive. They're going to deplete the little money that is being contributed into the social health insurance fund, which is basically being contributed by very few people who are in the formal sector, who are in the formal employment, who have a pay slip, maybe you and me and Prof here. But the other people in the informal sector, they have no way of enforcing to make sure that they contribute, because for those with a pay slip, is deducted at the source, so you cannot escape. But these other ones, in Gikomba, in Kamkunji, in agriculture, in the formal sector in Kenya is that big. In fact, if you look at the economic survey of 2025, we checked the economic progress in 2024. They're saying out of 782 jobs that were created, 90% of those jobs were created in the formal sector. That every 10 people that prof teaches and they graduate from the university, only one gets into the formal sector.
Yes.
9, they go,
Informal.
maybe they have to get a camera and dance, create content, or go get somewhere, open an M-Pesa or some bit shops and all that. And they hustle there and they earn a living.
Yeah.
So when you have an economy that is configured like that, it is left, like now in the health sector, to be funded by a very small portion that is in the formal sector. So when you ask me what is good in the budget, the pronouncement, the policy pronouncements are very sweet and are in the right direction. But when you ask whether they are funded, they are not funded. Then how are they going to be achieved? How are you going to achieve UHC if you have not employed the healthcare workers? How are you going to achieve primary healthcare if level 2 dispensary, level 3 and health center are not funded? How are you going to achieve community interventions when the community health promoters, the national government is employing them at MOH? Like, why would MOH in Nairobi want to employ community health workers instead of devolving those money to the counties and let the counties deal with that function within the communities because they are closer to the people? And that is the spirit of devolution. That let us decenter, let's move the function from the center to the periphery so that they are better managed when they are closer to the people. So there's a disconnect. The walk and the talk are not aligned. Therefore, the parliament has some room, they can make adjustment like 10%, but from the responsibility lies with the House on the Hill that has to make a call and fix these things.
You mentioned the UHC is not funded by the budget, right? So clearly it's not a priority. Do you think the government has a different set of priorities, and why?
You look at where the money is going. It's a very simple thing. Where is the money going? To me, that is the priority. When you look at where the money is going to State House. State House has a budget increase. Yeah? So money is going where? Where is the priority? State House. Money is going into the office of the president. Where is the priority? The office of president. When the head of state says, guys, you have to tighten your belt, it has to start with him. He has to be an example and a role model. You, even as a father, as a mother in the house, you cannot be telling children and your babies that, guys, ni kubaya. So let's do what? Let's tighten our belts. Let's do it cabbage. And you, as the dad and prof, you go home, you're telling them things are tough. You will do cabbage and rice. Then for you, you're doing nyamachoma and you're doing expensive whiskey and champagne. How does that appear?
No.
You have to lead by an example. So when we are seeing budget cuts in the education sector, when we are seeing feeding programs in the education sector getting a budget cut, when we are seeing examination not funded, why would you increase the budget in State House and reduce the budget for healthcare and reduce budget for examination and reduce budget for school feeding program? So clearly you can tell where the budget is going. You're increasing the budget for the police, you're increasing the budget for national intelligence, you're increasing the budget for defense. Then you know we want a big police force, we want big intelligence service to deal with someone who is hungry. So have you seen the budget allocation for hiring agriculture extension officers to support farmers produce in new technologies, produce or attend to their cows and increase milk production? Like you're seeing every day we recruit. We're recruiting the police. We should also recruit. Have you ever seen an advertisement, government recruiting economists, government recruiting agriculture officers or livestock experts to help support farmers in production when we are saying that we are going to be a food sufficient country? Where are the priorities? Why are we even the insecurity? If we fix the economy and we have people who are people are full, people are getting able to pay their fees, crime will come down. There's an inverse relationship between poverty and rates of crime.
Yeah.
If you look at countries with very high levels of poverty, or even communities and societies where poverty is high, you will also find that crime is high. So instead of getting a big police force to come and deal with this, address the poverty levels, let people have incomes, let people have jobs, let people be busy, and then you see what? You see the level of crime coming down.
Okay. Thank you so much, Joy, with the sites that you've given me. Professor, you mentioned earlier that clearly there's no explanation from the government on the budget and the bill process, etc., right? So do you, in terms of what you said, what measures should the government take so that the citizens can know there's a difference between these two?
Yeah, first of all, let me add something on the healthcare, because Abuja Declaration talks about 15% in healthcare. The government is doing 3%. And if they were to put 15% of the audited revenue, all the problem that John is talking about will be sorted very easily. And we have modeled them. And even the solution John is talking about, some of us have given them even algorithm that you just need to add. You see those equations say that when y is equal to mc plus a by like this, find a when y is that. We have given them that formula. And they don't want to follow. Even there's a book I've written called Solomonic Economics, which explains even the healthcare economics. Without a health service commission, those things you are talking about won't work. I even wrote a bill that we need a health service commission to take care of the interest. See, that time I saw Davji's head bleeding blood because they went to the street to ask to be treated fairly. So we have a government that is very insensitive, and maybe just to, on a lighter note, do you know why budget is increasing to State House? You have two heads of state. Yeah, we have two heads of state, isn't it? Raila Odinga is a head of state, and Ruto is a head of state, and Raila Odinga has his own government, isn't it? And Ruto has, so we have two governments, we have two heads of state. But also, recently also discussed that we have two vice presidents or deputy presidents. I hear one who is elected, another one who is appointed. So all those are budgets that you have to deal with, and they are crazy. You see, Raila is still being given his pensions. You saw they reduced the one for Kalonzo, they reduced the one for Uhuru Kenyatta, but they increased the one for Kindiki, they increased the one for Raila, and they increased the one for William Ruto. So government has all these problems that we are talking about, that they have misplaced priorities. Yeah. And why we are having this problem, and all this one comes from the one thing, the government can't perform. When a government cannot perform, then the government itself becomes an insecurity. I don't know, maybe Marlene, you are married or not, but when you have a man at home who can perform, isn't it? Yeah. When I mean man can perform, man have some duties at home they can't do, isn't it? Then they become very violent. A man who can't perform at home, they start beating the wife, isn't it? You realize that is why they want people to help them beat. Like you see the policemen who are flying all the way to Trans Nzoia, going to Natembea's home, the home in Nairobi. We have a lot of things policemen can do. To be involved yourself on tracking Natembea, tracking, I don't know, Gachagua, why should you be involved in doing something which is creative? So a government that cannot perform is scared, and their main priorities remain in power. So that's why you see the budget is going into increasing security, increasing intelligence. There'll be money budgeted for abductions. And I also want to highlight the fact that I want to call on this show the controller of budget, because she made a submission, and I'm talking to her. You made a submission that we have budgeted corruption. Why don't you identify them in this budget and then bring them out before the budget is passed? Because we don't want to wait when they're already been passed and they're already... The best way to steal government money is to put them in the budget. If the government they're going to buy for you a chopper, Marlene, it will be implemented if it's in the budget. So this is the way to steal money. With the budget corruption, the 4 billion shillings we are losing per day is in this budget. When Uhuru Kenyatta said we are losing 2 billion shillings per day, people are asking for evidence. The evidence is in the budget. And they come with this finance bill of taxing people who don't need to tax. There are people sitting in State House just saying, what can we do to make money from so-and-so? So-and-so seems to make a lot of money. What can we do? That's why they're expanding State House. Remember when they're doing renovating State House? They were not renovating because it was leaking. They were expanding more rooms and offices because the president does not want to work. He's working from State House. Kibaki used to work from Harambee House, isn't it? Moi used to work from Harambee House, live in State House. These people, they live and work in State House. Why are they working from there? They are doing everything opaque and they want to do everything in private so that no one sees. So coming back to what should the government do?
Prof, the control of budget highlighted that and said that part of the budgetary corruption was her own salary.
Yes.
She said that her salary was budgeted like over 5 times.
5 times, yeah.
So someone was like, if you can be able to steal using the control of budgets vote,
Yeah.
then what about this other?
Yeah.
Because when you're struggling with the wage bill, and the control of budget pointed out and said when even she went to the National Treasury,
Yeah.
he saw that her budget was inflated. That what is budgeted for, that is not her true budget. That is not what she's paid.
Yeah.
So you can imagine if a high-ranking budget officer, like the control of budget, the person who authorizes withdrawals,
Yeah.
they have reached to her and they are still using her name.
Yeah.
What about these others?
But it's happening in many counties. We have people who died 2 years ago who came from their grave and signed a salary, then took the money and went back to the grave. That's how grave it is. So the fact that corruption was budgeted for, I think it will have been incumbent on John Badi to explain how this budget, the current budget, has excluded corruption. Why is the budget growing and there's no one is being employed? Let me give you now. 60% of youth are unemployed in Kenya. 20% of them, 20% of the remaining employed are underemployed. We have around 600 people leaving campus every year. And the last budget when it was led by Professor Junguna Ndungu, which was a 3.9 trillion budget, they had frozen employment. Now, in this current budget, have we known how many people get employed? 0. So I was telling you we need to be told, what is the Kenyan problem? You're asking me, how should the government do it? So let me explain to you. What's the Kenyan problem? The Kenyan problems are 3. One is exchange rate. We cannot exchange at 130 to $1. That's too much. For an economy to grow, it's too much because that also impacts on how much debt we pay. Secondly, interest rate. When our interest rate is 24%, while China's interest rate is 2.9, the cost of capital is so high that a Chinese can come from China and produce something here in Kenya and they'll be cheaper than us. You understand me? Sometimes Chinese get 0 rated loans to do business. That's why a Chinese can come and tender to do something in Kenya that you can't beat them. So I'm talking about exchange rate, interest rate, and inflation. Inflation means we are not producing, we're just consumers. And therefore, the cost of living has gone up. The value of the Kenya shilling is nothing. The purchasing power. Sahi hata kama uko na 1,000 kwa mfuko, you don't walk well. In my culture, 1,000 shilling is called ogwang, isn't it? Some people call it liech, an elephant, isn't it? Now, when you put it in your pocket, it looks like a cat. It doesn't look like an elephant, isn't it? When you are walking with 1,000 shillings in the pocket, you've been changed your walking style. Now, if you have 1,000 shillings, you walk like you're being rained on. So these are the 3 problems. Now, this problem can be solved by one silver bullet, production. So long as this budget doesn't address production, if you ask me, I'll lower the cost of electricity instantly, isn't it? I would also ensure that you give incentives to this economy and withdraw the issue of the house levy. Withdraw the house levy and do this. I just tell you, for anybody building a house below 3 million, isn't it? Yeah. We lower taxes because that person is not rich. Yeah. Secondly, anybody buying his first home, we lower the taxes. Instead of me going to build for your house, I just give incentive. Instead of that, you are now, the president today was opening affordable housing, which was 50% complete before he became president. Those are shambolic things you don't do. Why should I open affordable housing? I have no business opening affordable housing. What you do is just give incentives. People will build houses for themselves. Yeah. You get me? Yeah. Lowering the cost of food in Kenya. Zero rate every agricultural product. You will see young people going to farm. Do you know why young people don't want to go farming? Not because they are lazy. There is no money. Pay pending bills. So that, because look now, the budget proposes that 60 billion shillings will be lent to the MSMEs and SMEs, isn't it? While they are owed 420 billion shillings in pending bills. It's like, I owe you 420 billion, then instead of paying you, I lend you 60 billion. And then you should do business with that 60 billion and pay me back, but I won't pay you when you give me your goods and services. Can you imagine, Marlene, if I would come to your hotel or your restaurant and tell you, can I have a cup of tea and 10 mandazis? Then after that, I ask for water to drink. Then I tell you, thank you very much, I'll pay you after 90 days. Somebody has given you ngangano, you have employed a waiter or a waitress, you are paying rent, and rent cannot wait for 30 days, you'll pay rent every month. This is how this government is killing people. Now, another thing I wanted to see in this thing is, how are we lowering our debt? Because you cannot be borrowing more money, the debt is increasing, and you are paying. I was trying to say, you are repaying the debt, it is increasing. Then you can't have two problems whereby on the one side you have pending bills growing, isn't it? Yeah. And on the other side you have debt, because you cannot have two problems. If you have a husband at home whereby your house help is not being paid, your mama mboga who supplies for you vegetables is not being paid, but he's borrowing money for the house expenditure, but none of the expenditure is being paid. So they're spending rent, they're spending money for salon, they're spending school fees, he's also earning a salary, and he's borrowing money for household goods. I'm sure you're going to kick that man out of the house because he is stealing. So the government is having pending bills, meaning they are paying nobody, but they are borrowing money to pay everybody, isn't it? Yeah. And at the same time, they are collecting money from the people they need to be paying. So this cannot math. It doesn't math at all. So I wanted to see some clarity, because somebody said there were the experts proposed by Raila Odinga to come and help William Ruto. That clarity is missing. The other thing I wanted to see is that the government did 4 supplementary budgets. Why did they do 4 supplementary budgets? Every quarter, a supplementary budget. Do you know how to run an economy if you can guess like that? Why don't you do one and end? Now, the projections they did last year, they began by saying 570,000 billion, isn't it? Now, what happens is that they increased this number to the last one they were doing was around 875 billion, isn't it? Yes. Now, the question is, how can you have a variance of over 300 billion in guesswork? You know, if you guess with a difference of 1 million, maybe 20,000 or something, can you prepare a family budget, and the gap is the gap between what you prepared and what you finally need is 300 billion. And budgeting is an economic thing, is maths. 1 + 1 is equal to 2. What tools do they use? Or they have computers that have an error of 300 billion. So I don't understand this government, and I can also see from what they are projecting. They are projecting now a budget of 871 billion. I foresee this budget going to over $1 trillion by the time they do another supplementary budget. Now, where are they going to get this money from? They have not said how much they are going to borrow. Remember, in the budget, they have just said the deficit. When they see them saying a deficit, they mean they want to borrow it. Our debt is now 11.3 trillion. So add another 1 trillion there to make it 12.3 trillion within 1 year, isn't it? But they'll be repaying it, but remains just growing. I've never seen someone who is digging an anthill, but the anthill is swelling and getting bigger. I've never seen that. I don't know if you have seen someone who is...
Do you know?
Yeah.
In simple terms,
yeah,
we are not repaying the loan, because if we are repaying it, it would be reducing. So what will happen? We are borrowing to repay.
Yeah.
If we owe you, when the time comes to repay you, they come borrow me and repay you. So then you will never see the stock. And actually they borrow at an expensive rate. They owe you, government owes you at 5%.
Yeah.
Then the time your loan matures, that now they need to repay you. They have
that's why I say
borrow at a higher rate.
Yeah.
And repay. So do you see why our interest rate repayment is higher than our development expenditure?
Yeah. In that's why I was telling Okiom Tata, don't tell us about Odia's debt, because you can't prove Odia's debt. I'm sorry, you have to tell him if you meet him. Odia's debt cannot be proven by this regime. Do you know why? What's an Odia's debt? Odia's debt is a debt that has been taken but was never used according to national interest. For you to prove Odia's debt, you must prove that we have an illegitimate government. Odia's debt theory came in the year 1927 when Spain colonized the US. Do you know that Spain colonized America? Spain colonized America. So Spain went to borrow money from Cuba to suppress Americans with guns. You know, when you want to control a country, you don't have money. So they went to borrow money from Cuba to suppress America. So when America got their independence, they refused to pay the debt that Spain owed, that America owed Cuba, because they said this was borrowed by a colonial government which was illegitimate. So for Okiom Tata to prove Odia's debt, he has to prove that William Ruto, Uhuru Kenyatta, and Mwai Kibaki, and even Moi were not legitimate presidents of Kenya, and that they borrowed money as a legitimate government. That's not possible. But my point is that we requested for a debt review to answer your question. The debt review is, we are being told 55% of the debt we have is domestic debt, which means you get it from National Bank. So I wanted to ask them, if you service this debt every month, can you give us a chart of account that this money moved from Treasury and went to Coop Bank? This is the money that went to Coop Bank. This money went to NCBA. This money went to KCB. They can't tell us that because they're not paying it. They are paying this money on a spreadsheet, meaning somebody writes in a spreadsheet, in an Excel sheet, this money was paid, but those people have not received the money. You understand? Even the Hustler Fund, they said the government put money on Hustler Fund. No. The money came from KCB. That's why KCB was having trouble with itself. So even Ruto never put money on Hustler Fund. They told KCB to lend money that Kenyans will pay. So when repayment became a problem, KCB was in trouble. So we have a scam in a government that cannot explain to us 1 + 1. Then lastly, we have never had a budget in Kenya. Since the beginning, we have never had a budget. Let me give you that Moi used to read price list. That was not a budget. Moi used to tell you catalog, bread will be 2 bob. Sugar will be 3 bob. Milk will be 1 shilling. Is that a budget? No. That is a price list. Then Kibaki came in to read expenditure list. We will put this money on education. We shall put that money on healthcare. We shall put that money on infrastructure. We shall put that money on whatever it is. That is not a budget. That is list reading expenditure. We thought Ruto now was going to read a budget. Ruto got worse. Ruto now started reading allocation. Now there's a difference between a budget and allocation. Allocation ni kutenga, sivyo? Yeah. We will put tutatenga, and it's not there. Yeah. So you don't even cry that you are not in the budget. After your pesa won't be there. They'll tell you, we have put this one on UHC, but you won't see it. So we have gone worse. At least Moi used to tell us the truth. Sugar will be that. So that was okay. That's why, you know, during Moi, on budget day, everybody listened to their radio. And the next day, newspaper was bought countrywide, widely, isn't it? Nowadays, what does my grandmother have to know that there's 530 billion shillings in education? She doesn't know what that means. So she won't buy a newspaper and she won't listen to the radio. But it's so for William Ruto, when they say it, it means allocated. But there's what you call allocation and the actual disbursement. Where Lucky Baki was that there was an allocation, and after approval, that money was actually disbursed to that entity. For William Ruto, inabaki at allocation. Like now, if your husband tells you, sweetheart, this month I allocate to you 100,000 shillings. So you are happy, but it won't come. That's William Ruto for you. So all these things Buddy is going to read is going to be allocations. But the actual disbursement will go to State House. That's why we have been seeing that the national seal is in State House, not with the Attorney General. So it means that even the borrowing will be borrowed from State House. He can borrow directly. In fact, he can order money to be, KRA collects money every day. The government does not operate any account. There's no current account. That money goes directly to where they should go, repayment of salaries, repayment of loans. So this money can be taken directly by William Ruto. I remember there was a guy who used to be, there's a lady, I don't want to mention the name on set because she's a friend of mine, I have to protect her. She's an old lady. She was in charge of KRA. Moi used to tell people, can we meet on Mombasa Road? If you are in charge of KRA, he will call you Commissioner General. Can we meet on Mombasa Road? You give me a sack of the money you have collected today. That's how they used to take money from Treasury. Long time ago. Can you imagine? So one day, this lady was told Moi was going to Mombasa. Please, I'm on my way to the airport. Could we meet Mombasa Road? You bring me that sack of money. And then he said, how? We don't give money like that, isn't it? See, Moi just went to the airport, landing in Mombasa, aliachishwa kazi. We are going there, where you can be ordered, send me 300 billion you collected. I want that money in my office. So we are moving to a worse situation from good situation. There was progress. We should be having a president, like, if you go to Germany, by the time they are saying they have allocated 10 billion shillings to Treasury, is in the account. When the minister is reading, you understand? Yeah. For that term, that money has been put almost like a drawdown. So as they collect taxes, money hits that account, the money comes to you. It's like we call a standing order. But for us, after the money has been allocated in a budget, mark my words, again, the ministry or a parastatal or county government has to write a letter to justify to the president why it's urgent. Have I heard people going to State House by saying, Mr. President, tunataka kujenga county. So if you are a governor, you have been allocated by the constitution a certain amount of money. Yeah. Again, you have to go to the president in State House and explain why your money is so urgent. Can you imagine? If you agree with the husband today that our monthly budget is 70K, isn't it? Yeah. And that has been agreed. And you even sit and say, okay, out of the money you earn together, you put in this account, you spend. Then you also have to tell him now, you see, you have to now give me that money, because if you don't give me that money, kids are going to die. That you have to write to your husband that kids will die if you don't give me the money. Can you imagine such a marriage? This is the marriage Kenya is having with the president. And me, I wanted clarity as an economist. Let people not become beggars. What is rightfully theirs is theirs. You know, by the president looking like nimekupatia. Umenipatia nini? Did he go to sell his money? This money is Kenyans' money. You are just a facilitator because not everybody can collect and disburse. In fact, disbursement is done by treasury. So why should he be involved? Like you hear everywhere he goes, he is promising money. Nimeweka hapa. Where umeweka ama head of treasury? Have you heard the American president saying when he goes to another state that nimeleta hii pesa?
No.
Why is he saying it? Because he says, if he says his son has brought money, he looks rich, and also he looks like he's the one who is helping us. This is our money. Let the money go to the people. Don't tell the people in Ukuru kwa Njenga, nimewajengea. With which money? This is their money you are collecting from them. Wacha nyumba ijengwe. So I wanted clarity where the presidency is the presidency, treasury is treasury, and there is nothing like, again, haggling and fighting and coercing, and I could use any term in this world. But there is a need for Kenyans to be treated with decency. When the economy runs like a system, go to countries where they are doing it. Even in Rwanda, when the president has really agreed on the budget, that's why there's budget reading, and the president has to sign it, isn't it? The finance bill, once you are sent to it, kazi meisha. Don't again carry the money in a pickup. They are going to give money in Muranga. Yeah. So these are things I'm discussing about. Then the last point I want to discuss about is the economy is having problems, but the budget and the finance bill doesn't seem to address those issues. And that's why 2025, 2026 will come and go, just like 2024, 2025 has come and is now going. The problems are remained. If not, they have become worse. And the budget should be done this way. Like you see in the budget statement, they are talking about how much revenue will they collect, isn't it? Because revenue collected, for example, from services the government offers, they collect revenue. There are commercial parastatals that earn the government money, like KAA, Kenya Airports Authority. Any plane landing and taking off pays KAA. So that money goes to government, for example, isn't it? Now, once you know your revenue you are going to get and the tax you are going to get, together, you know that that's what you are going to collect. But to run the country, you need X. So they need to tell us, how are we going to spend the money we are going to collect to live the life we want? Just for example, you can be earning 200,000 shillings, your husband earns 100,000 shillings, but your budget per year is this money. So you said, if we go and do this and that, we shall manage. And I give example of my mother. My father used to earn 1,500 a month as a catechist. So my mother told my father that money is not enough, because to run this home, we need 4,500 a month. So then my mother said, give me all your salary. He told my father, if you give me the 1,500 at first of the month, I'll invest this money and multiply it to 4,500 and feed the family. So my father used to come with his salary in an envelope, because as a catechist, you are given by a priest. So the priest could even put a rubber stamp of a cross at the entrance of the envelope so that you don't open, and give my mother. My mother used to go to Busia, buy omena, buy tomatoes, buy onions, come to sell in the local market to multiply the money, then we survive. That's a budget. You cannot be saying that you have even a deficit. That's not a budget. How do you spend your money to get what you want? That's how economies run. Thank you.
John, do you have anything to add?
You know, Prof.
Yeah.
What you are elucidating from Moi being a price list, Bajeti, being a wish list, and all that, the public finance management Act of 2012, which was coming from the new Constitution of 2010, attempted to a great deal to cure that by providing that the budgeting should be in program-based.
Yeah.
That now we will have a budget organized in terms of programs, identifying the outcome, identifying the outputs, and coming to the inputs. That we are not just saying we want to spend 200 billion in security. We are saying what problem do we want to solve and what change do we want to see. So that we are spending, the interest is not even about how much we are spending.
Yeah.
It's about the problem we want to
To solve,
address.
yeah.
If the problem we're saying is unemployment, we want to create jobs.
Yeah.
We want to say we want to create 10,000 jobs.
Yeah.
Then that is what we want to see. So we want to see a relationship between the financial and the non-financial. We have the spending and the results. Do we see the results of this spending? Then we have that disconnect. We continue to see that disconnect. That even though we had a program-based budget that it was organized that, and we would see the results of the spending,
Yeah.
we have still stuck on allocation and expenditure. But do we have something to show from
Nothing.
the expenditure? There's a big disconnect.
And before you even continue, because this is an interesting conversation, by the way, Marlon, do you know why we had Vision 2030? The Vision 2030 was to cure anybody coming to State House and coming with his own ways of doing things. You know, there was midterm 1, midterm 2, midterm 3. We are now in midterm 4, isn't it?
Yeah.
And there was a time when the Vision 2030 saw reforms in education sector to create a certain education we needed, but also reforms in the industrial industry to produce certain jobs. And that's why Vision 2030 foresees that by the time we reach 2030, we should have everybody living a middle income life. But that's not the case, because look, South Africa is having a per capita income of $7,000. For us, we are doing $2,000 average. And they used to be only $1,000 ahead of us. Now they're doing much better. Rwanda is now doing a higher per capita income than us. So what you are saying is that when we came with Vision 2030, we came with a way on which every sector will spend according to Vision 2030, because that was the overarching document that brings in the midterm plans. And then from midterm plans, we now develop strategies, and every parastatal had a strategy. For example, let's say Kenya says, for us to become a middle-income economy, we need to have X number of kilometers of S roads, A roads, B roads, and D roads. Somebody in the education sector can say, for us to become middle-income economy, we need X number of teachers. Healthcare could say, for us to become middle-income economy, we need to have this ratio of doctor per population, physician per population. All those things, those things are right there. But what happens is that you change, as I now call it, bottom-up economic model, isn't it? And then when you come with this model, bottom-up economic model, it's like you have ignored the overarching, what's called the Kenyan dream, which was Vision 2030. And I know you want to take, but allow me just to explain why we are having a problem because of bottom-up. When bottom-up came, we were told that mtu wa chini anaumia, so we should help them. So we should remove money from up and bring them down. Kenyans were told their biggest enemy is mtu wa payslip. Isn't it? But what they didn't know, economy doesn't work like that. If you go to a wardrobe, there's a hook, isn't it, that hooks the clothes. The middle class like a hook. So one person, like you are working, one person, you're paying a house help. You're paying a security guard. You're paying a cleaner. You're paying mtu wa mboga and the rest. So whenever you suffer, all these people suffer. They were thinking they need to punish you to help these people down here. It has not worked. And that's why you have seen that you talked about the issue of whenever that the statistics are showing that 10% increment in jobs in the formal, while the informal 90%, isn't it? what is clear from economics is that the formal sector has shrunk, the middle class have become smaller, but the informal sector has expanded, but that's how poverty expands. If you have informal economy and formal economy, informal economy is even an economy that does not pay taxes. So the fact that we have had more middle class shrinking, their pay slip has been hit very hard. They are paying a lot of money on house levy and houses they don't get. Lawyers are processing more of property, we call it recoveries. You took a loan to buy a mortgage. You took a mortgage to buy a house. Now what happened? The government has come to deduct money from you for a house levy, then you default on your mortgage because the money has gone to house levy and they're not giving you a house. Now the thing is that your house will be under recovery. You go to CRB. So Marlene, do you know how many Kenyans are on CRB? 19 million. That is 66% of adult population. Now when Buddy says that they will lower interest rate so that these people can get money, even if you lower interest rate to -10, someone on CRB cannot borrow money. So the routonomics in terms of bottom up doesn't work. It will not work. It has never worked anywhere. What I expected was that after experimenting with it for 2 years, they should tell us this thing doesn't work. And you'll hear again Buddy reading the budget based on better. And better has never gotten better. Better is getting worse. And that is the misnomer.
You know, Marlene, the principles of economics aren't rocket science. In a very simple way, if you find a country like Kenya in a recession, where you have, like Prof was elucidating here, you have a big informal sector. You know, informal sector, which is not within the control of government system. You can't even see, you can't know how much they are earning. You can't even tell their even work environment. But these are people who could even be underpaid. Work environment is not guaranteed safety because they are not controlled. Even underage people could be working there. You even counterfeits, you can't even guarantee even the safety and the standards of what is happening in that economy. It's an embarrassment that we are 90% of our jobs are
coming from informal sector.
From that sector.
They have no pension.
Job security, they don't even have contracts. Someone is hired by a word of mouth, and then you can be fired. You're hired today, you fired tomorrow. Even there are no even benefits and rights. Like even a mother has a young baby, they don't have even maternity leave. You work there, and then when you deliver, you don't come to work. You can't come back. You lose your job like that. Even when you miss work, that's because the baby is sick or you're taking the baby for immunization, for vaccine and all that. They can't even give you sick off or some days off. Then they fire you like that. So that's not something that we should pride of and talking about that we are lower middle income economy and that in Vision 2030 we will be at that level of quality of life. So when you look at this budget, a small statistic, for me I say that we are taxing. Yes, we have the finance bill which is proposing a variety of taxes. These taxes are going to come into the treasury. Where these taxes going to go? A huge share of that taxes is going to go to the payment of debt. And I define the Kenyan problem as an overload. And when it's an economy overload, then we have an economy which has a carrying capacity. It's like a lorry. You have a lorry which has a carrying capacity, and they told that this is 10 tons. Then instead of loading 10 tons, you go and load 20 tons. So, and you put it on the road. So when you are driving on the road, you are even endangering the safety of other road users, your own safety, and even what you're carrying, and even the lorry itself.
And the road.
And you're even damaging the road because of overload. And there is no even, how do we call this, where they check the
Weighbridge.
Yeah, there's no even weighbridge, or you go through the weighbridge and they don't even take care, they don't even obey the road rules. So, I asked somebody, if you have your own business, would you hire John Mbadi to run it the way he's running the treasury? Let me give you a statistic here. So, he is borrowing in this budget of 25-26. He has proposed to borrow 876 billion. And out of that 876 billion, he's going to invest in development 707 billion. So that means he's borrowing more than what he's going to invest. Where is that other money going to go? It's going to go to entertainment. It's going to go to repayment of buying flowers and tea in the house, in recurrent expenditure in whatever form that it is.
Yeah.
So even you, Marlin, if you go to the bank today, you go and borrow money.
Yeah.
So you should borrow money. Either you want to start a boutique, like Prof was explaining here that the mother would go to Busi and get omena, and from that 1,500, come and multiply it, at the end of the month there is 4,000.
Yes.
So instead of you using this money to invest, so that it multiplies, you come and consume. And then when the time comes to repay, you have no income. You have no reserve to repay the debt. So what you do, you go and borrow again. So even the law, that is not obeying the law. The law, the PFM Act says we limit borrowing to development, that we shall only, in the medium term, borrowing shall be for development expenditure only. Because when you borrow and invest, that money will grow. When the person who lent you money, time comes for you to repay, then you find that you have his or her money. And some money that has left for you, you made some profit. But when you borrow, you come, you consume. Then when the time comes to repay, you don't have. We continue a cycle like that. So that's why we have reached a point we are borrowing to repay. And they are lying that we are borrowing for development. If you lie to us that we are borrowing for development, we will catch up with you. And how we'll catch up with you is when the time for repayment comes. You see, when even the Eurobond, the 2 billion Eurobond, Kenya had to go and borrow to repay. So if you borrowed this money and you invested it, how come the economy has not generated
look at
income enough?
Look at it this way.
And you have to go and do what? And borrow to come and repay.
Look at it this way. When I saw the vast budget projection, because last year our budget was 3.9 trillion. Now, the one which was proposed before the 4.2, but even if you use the 4.2, that's a difference of how much? That's a difference of 300 billion, isn't it? If you look at percentage growth in that budget, it's around 18% percentage growth in the last year budget to this year's budget, isn't it? So the revenue, the economy is growing at 4.8, but our cost of the economy is growing at 18%. Let me put it this way to make you understand. Let's say you run a kiosk and your cost of buying everything you want has grown by 18%, isn't it? But the revenue you're generating has grown by 4.8%. Are you in business? So I'm talking about a government that runs a negative ROI on investment, negative return on investment on the economy. So that's why, even forget about the issue of what they are borrowing. Because the fact they are not developing is seen by that figure, that if your revenue has grown only by 4.8%, why should your cost grow by 18%? Now, if that is the growth taking place over the last 4 years, because look at it from 2022, look at it from 2021, you discover we have been growing our budget as an average of 20%. Yet the economy has been growing an average of 5%, meaning that it is theft. Because if you can't grow, where is this money going? Does this money disappear? Some of them fall in Lake Victoria and the fish eat them? Or where are they going? Because the economy should vomit the money it has swallowed, isn't it? You know, economy is not like us, that economy is not like a stomach that chews, isn't it?
Yeah.
Economy regurgitates. You throw money at it, it throws back. If you throw money at it, you throw back. Just like a relationship. I take you for coffee, we become closer. I take you for lunch, we get closer. I take you for dinner, we become friends, isn't it? Now, I take you for a trip, we become best of friends. But it cannot be that an economy you throw money at, then it eats most of it and it disappears and digests. No. Economy does not digest money. Economy brings money back. The reason why the Western peoples are giving them money, they are looking at the growth potential Kenya has. When they are going to borrow money from World Bank or IMF, they tell Kenyans of the economy's potential of generating. But when they come with the money, they don't put the money into where it should be, therefore the money does not generate. You see, that's why they can't repay back. Because whenever you go to the bank to borrow money, as an economist of the bank looks at what are your cash flow, what is your revenue, what are your bank movements. They see this lady seems to be having, at any given time, the account balance is 215,000. So if he takes a loan of 2 million, where I want them to pay me 80,000 per month, at any given time I can deduct 80,000 per month and get it. So they show that. But this time, sorry to tell you, that is not very easy. The president went to China to look for 4.6 billion shillings, a billion shillings to put on SGR, and China says no, we're not giving you that money until you do the budget, isn't it? Which means it's a plain no. Because once you do the budget, why should you borrow money? So what I'm trying to say in short, that they have discovered that the economy is not working, the people managing the economy do not know how to manage it, and therefore they are not betting on them, and that's why they're telling Kenya, do PPPs, do strategic investor, we shall support you with infrastructure.
Thank you so much. To wind up, since time is not on our side, what's the first thing, or rather, what should the public do to make their voices being heard in this finance bill?
Maybe you can go first, but what if I just go, basically for their voice to be heard is the same thing. Let the public ask what are the consequences of this finance bill to be explained to them. The second thing the public needs to do is the public also needs to participate in reading, not hearing commentaries only on TV, because there's so much you can hear on TV, and some people on TV also are being called to play propaganda. So go and look at how the budget affects you. Let them not just go for the overall budget, but go sector by sector. For example, healthcare, people should organize themselves in a group, education sector. So every sector should look at how this affects them and let them shy away from doing politics. Like you see, this budget bill, this must pass because we are supporting William Ruto. It cannot be that where William Ruto has support base, they are saying we go. Where William Ruto does not. So let's not make budget making process political. Let us divorce from politics. Politics is 2027. Let's just focus on the budget. Then I also ask, not just about the people. I'm asking the government agencies, please be approachable and just answer questions. Don't be defensive. Also encourage healthy debate. As a country, we are children of one mother. It's nothing personal. We're just discussing about numbers. So let that openness be there so that at least people can reach the truth, because the truth cannot be there if there's no love. So we love Kenya. The Kenyan officials should also love us back. And on that basis, we just need to talk openly, and transparency will help us to reach the conclusion. So,
Joan, what advice do you have to healthcare workers, county health professionals, the patients? What advice do you have for them so that they may not feel sidelined from the finance bill?
Number one, now the finance bill and the budget discussions are in the House. They have representatives. Every person, whether community health promoter or a clinical officer or a doctor somewhere, they come from a constituency.
Yes.
the members of parliament have already committed the finance bill and the budget appropriations, the budget estimates, to the budget and appropriation committee. Is analyzing that, and then they will bring to the house. And the committee is taking views. So let them engage their members of parliament. Let them write to them. Let them call them. Let them send them messages on the areas of the finance bill that they are telling them, do not approve this one. For example, there is a proposal in the finance bill that is proposing to change the pension. You know, at the moment, the pension, the first 600,000, the first 300,000, if you're getting your pension in installments, is tax-free. If you're getting it in lump sum, 600,000 is tax-free. But this finance bill is proposing that now the pension should all be put together and should be taxed. The 300,000 that was previously exempted, the 600,000 that was previously exempted, and even the money that was passed to the children or the widow by their kin when dies in office was exempted, but now it is taxed. So such kind of provisions, I find them that they are not
counterproductive,
contributing to the decent aging. That these are people who are old, these are retirees. Such kind of provision should be struck off from that finance bill. There's also a provision about taxing the digital space, digital economy, where people who are dancing on TikTok, people who are creating content, people who are buying stuff on Alibaba, on Google and all that. Initially, the companies which were selling their products in Kenya on digital space with the income of over 2 million Kenya shillings were the only ones that are being taxed. But that proposal is being removed. And now everybody should be, all those companies, even the small ones, should be taxed. So how much is it going to cost KRA to spy on every small company, on every small person who is selling stuff in Kenya here online to make sure that they comply? So what is the cost of that tax administration? That even the members of parliament should ask KRA to answer to them how much it's going to cost them to collect that tax, because tax has to be efficient, has to be economical, that you don't spend a lot of money, you don't spend 100 shillings to collect 70 shillings. I'm very sure that if they do the math, KRA is going to spend a lot of money on spies who will be spying online and spying even companies and individual accounts to be able to see how much they are getting from the digital spaces and digital platforms for them to be able to pay. And that same applies to the healthcare workers. We already see I mentioned the UHC workers who already have no provision in this budget. And the finance bill cannot raise money for them. The tax that is there all the years, because even we didn't have a finance bill for 24, so we have had a budget. So this question of having finance bills every year, we have talked about this, that remove this finance bill, let's have a national tax policy that makes taxation regime predictable and stable. We don't have to be every year remove, insert, delete. Let's know that even as an investor, you know that I'm going in Kenya to invest, or I'm going to this industry to invest for the next 5 years. These are the taxes that are payable, and this is how I'm going to pay them. So that it's very predictable. If you are buying your gadgets and putting your software to help you determine tax and pay, you do that for that period of time. But every year you have these adjustments. And if you check, Marvin, whether even these amendments are bringing in more revenue, there is no, the revenue to GDP has remained constant, and sometimes even is going down as share of GDP, 17-16, no matter the adjustments in tax administration that they're bringing, and even making the cost of taxing. KRA is spending a lot of money and hiring a lot of staff to come and force people to pay, grow the economy, and the tax will come in. So the healthcare workers should speak to their representatives at a national level and at the county level. Health is devolved. Like 70% is at the county level, but the budget is at the national level. So why don't we just let money go to where the service delivery is happening? And like even Prof had mentioned earlier, we cannot have a fragmented way of managing human resource and expect efficient health delivery. And we have Nyandarua, we have Migori, we have Garissa, each one of them managing human resource differently. And then when I'm here in Nairobi, when I need healthcare, I don't care that I'm going to Machakos, I'm going to Kiambu, I'm going to Kajiado. I just go to whatever health facility that I am going when we have these national referrals or level 5. So we need a centralized way of managing human resource, because the decentralized way of it has shown that the counties have not been able to manage human resource. Let's have a national way, a
Health Service Commission
for managing human resource. Then the governors can concentrate on what? On service delivery. Because if you look, a huge share of their budget is going to the payment of salaries. And when you tell them that, can we have a way of lifting this burden from you? We have the national government who has refused to deliver, to devolve finances to the counties, manage the health care workforce. Then you remain with infrastructure. Isaac Ruto, who was the chair for Council of Council of Governors, said no, let's have all this. But what is the resource? If it is not working, it's the time that we can fix it. And as I conclude, I would urge every Kenyan, using the words of Martin Luther King Jr., he said that let's be moving, let's be doing something. He said, if you can't fly, run. If you can't run, walk. If you can't walk, crawl. But make sure at any time
you're moving.
You're moving. So let's continue pushing this conversation on the finance bill, on the budget, on alignment, on this misalignment, on mispriorities. Let's continue hitting them hard. They will hear. You see, the president withdrew and rejected the finance bill. Let's continue pushing, pushing. Those who can fly, let them fly. Those who cannot, let them run. Those who can walk, let them walk. Those who can crawl, let them crawl. But let everybody, let every Kenyan rise up to the occasion and do something in this particular financial year, in this budget of 25-26.
We are glad for being part of this conversation. Clearly, there's a lot to unpack, and we've not said much. So I urge you to keep following us at Sauti Bajeti TV on Twitter, Instagram, and Sauti and YouTube TV. To our guest, thank you so much for being here and helping us to lift the lid on the Finance Bill 2025. So until next week, same time, next week on Tuesday, same time at 7:30 p.m., we will be here still unpacking the conversation on public finance, the budget, and the Finance Bill. Also, we want to appreciate the PFM media for hosting us and having us at this place and at this time. Thank you and have a great evening.